Hi everyone, I hope we're all doing well. In today's lesson we are going to learn how to round to any number of decimal places. We will have been successful today if we can round to any number of decimal places. When we round to decimal places, we're usually told in the question how many decimal places to round to, but sometimes we need to use our common sense about this. So for example, since we have pennies and money, we usually round to 2 decimal places unless told otherwise. So let's begin with rounding to 1 decimal place. Let's look at the number 4.53. So since I'm being asked to round to 1 decimal place, I'm going to identify the first decimal place, which is directly after the decimal point. I want to think about the two numbers that lie on either side of 4.53, and thinking back yesterday to reading scales might help us with this. Both of these numbers should have 1 decimal place since we're being asked to round to 1 decimal place. So the number below 4.53 is 4.5 and the number above is 4.6. Now to decide which one of these I'm going to round to, I look at the second decimal place, the 3. If this number is less than 5, I round down to the lower number. If this number is greater than or equal to 5, I round up to the higher number. So since 3 is less than 5, my answer is 4.5. Okay, so let's look at more examples of this. I'm going to underline up until the first decimal place because I'm being asked to round to 1 decimal place, and I'm going to identify the two numbers that lie on either side. So the number below this is 13.4 and the number above is 13.5. I use the second decimal place, the 7, to help me decide which one of these I round to. Since 7 is greater than or equal to 5, we round up to the higher one. Okay, and that's the same method I'm going to use each time. So in this case, it's either going to round to 4.7 or 4.8. Since 1 is less than 5, we round down to 4.7. In part C, it's either going to be 39.8 or 39.9. Remember, 5 rounds up, so we round up to the higher number. Now in part D, this one's a little bit trickier. We are either rounding down to 5.9. The number above 9 is 10, but we don't have room for a 10 in one place. So what we need to do is think of the next number up, which would be 6.0. Okay, so after 5.9 we've got 6.0. 8 is greater than 5, which means we round up to the higher number. Okay. Now we've got some extra decimal places that we're not really interested in. When we're being asked to round to 1 decimal place, all we are interested in is the first and the second decimal place. So for 2.3, it is either going to be 2.3 or 2.4. 4 is less than 5, so we round down to the lower one. The 7 did not help us at all there. For part B, it is either 14.6 or 14.7. Since 9 is greater than 5, we round up to the higher number. And for C, it is either 2.2 or 2.3. 5 rounds up, so we round up to the higher number. Okay, so in example 3, we are being asked to change the following fractions to a decimal first and round to 1 decimal place. So if you recall how to change a fraction to a decimal, we divide the top number by the bottom number in a calculator. So in your calculator, you do 3 divided by 7, which is going to get you 0.428 and so on. Remember, we're not interested in anything after the second decimal place. So the two numbers this is either going to round to is 0.4 or 0.5, the two 1 decimal place numbers. 2 is less than 5, so we round down to 0.4. I'm going to repeat this process for B. 9 divided by 13 in my calculator. That is 0.692 and so on. So the two numbers are either going to be 0.6 or 0.7. 9 is greater than 5, so it rounds up to the higher number. And in part C, 11 divided by 16 gives us 0.6875. So that is either going to be 0.6 or 0.7. Since 8 is greater than 5, again, we have an answer of 0.7. And last example for rounding to 1 decimal place. Sometimes we estimate by rounding, so it's quite tricky to do a question like this in our heads, but we could do it in our heads if we rounded to 1 decimal place first. So I'm going to skip out the middle working and I'm just going to talk you through it. The two numbers that lie on either side of 3.2 are 3.298, are 3.2 and 3.3. 9 is greater than 5, so it rounds up to 3.3. Plus, it is either going to be 5.5 or 5.6. 2 is less than 5, so we round down to 5.5. And we can easily do this in our head because 3 plus 5 is 8, so the answer is 8.8. So in the second one, rounding to 1 decimal place, this is either going to be 0.9 or 1.0. 4 is less than 5, so we round down to 0.9. Take away, this is either going to be 0.6 or 0.7. 7 rounds up, so it's going to be 0.7. And again, since 9 take away 7 is 2, our answer is 0.2. Okay, let's move on to rounding to 2 decimal places and more than 2 decimal places. So let's look at the number 3.438. Because we are being asked to round to 2 decimal places, I'm going to identify the second decimal place, which is the 3. So I want to identify the 2 numbers that lie on either side of this number. This time I want to identify the 2 numbers that have 2 decimal places. So it's going to be 3.43 and 3.44. I'll look at the number after the decimal place I'm rounding to, so that is the 8 in the third decimal place. If that number is less than 5, I round down. If it is greater than or equal to 5, I round up. And since 8 is greater than 5, I round up. So my answer is 3.44. Okay, so let's look at more examples of this. This time I'm going to underline up until the second decimal place and identify 2 numbers that have 2 decimal places that lie on either side. So the number below this is 7.58. The number above is 7.59. This time it's the 3 that's going to help me. Since that is less than 5, I round down to 7.58. In our second example, the 2 numbers are 0.51 and 0.52. Since 9 is greater than 5, I round up to 0.52. And in our last example here, we have 9.99, and the number above that would be 10.00, making sure I put in the 2 zeros as we are asked for it to 2 decimal places. The 6 is greater than 5, so we must round up. In example 2, we are being asked to round to the number of decimal places shown in the bracket. So in example A, that is 2 decimal places, so our 2 numbers are 10.14 or 10.15. 6 is greater than 5, so we round up to 10.15. In part B, it is 3 decimal places, so our 2 numbers are 1.999 or 2.000, making sure I put in the 3 zeros for 3 decimal places. 9 rounds up, so we are going to round to the number above. In C, we are asked for 0 decimal places. So we are underlining 0 decimal places. The 2 numbers are going to be 11 or 12. 6 is greater than 5, so we round up to 12. In D, we're asked for 4 decimal places, so our two numbers are either going to be 0.5432 or 0.5433. 1 is less than 5, so we round down. Okay, so as a little extension, I want to look at when rounding does not apply. Sometimes in real life, we can't round as we would like to. So let's read through this example. A lift can hold a maximum of 8 people. There are 26 people in a queue for the lift. Jake calculates that the lift will take 3 journeys since 26 divided by 8 equals 3.25, which rounds to 3. Explain what Jake has done wrong. So Jake is right and he's rounding here. However, if I multiply the 3 lift journeys by the 8 people that can take it, that only gives me 24 people. So if I only take 3 lift journeys, only 24 people can take the lift, but I have 26 people, so there's 2 people left over. Why this has happened is because 3.25 is part of a lift journey. The 0.25 tells me that is part of a lift journey, but we cannot take part of a lift journey. If 2 people need to take the lift journey, they must take it. So we need to round up in this case to 4 journeys. We need to take that extra journey. Even though only 2 people will be in the lift, we still need to take it. So if I share £7 among 6 people, let me divide 6 into £7, and I'm going to put in the 2 zeros for the pennies. 6 goes into 7 once with a remainder of 1. 6 goes into 10 once with a remainder of 4. 6 goes into 40 6 times with a remainder of 4. And again, 6 goes into 40 6 times, and so on. So usually what we would do is we would take 1.166 and we would round it to 2 decimal places because it is money. If I had to round this to 2 decimal places, that would round up to 1.17. However, if I multiply 1.17 by the 6 people who got that, that gives me £7 and 2 pence. I do not have an extra 2 pence, so when it comes to money and splitting money, I need to round down so to make sure that everyone gets an equal share and we have enough money to go round, okay? So I would need to round to this case to 1.16. Okay guys, that is all for today. Please make sure to check Teams to see what exercise I have set you for today.